I just wanted to say I'm so impressed with all of you who participated in my community quizzes every week, sometimes several times a week. I'm so impressed by you guys. You literally crush in these quizzes. Confess to me right now, are you actually Russian speakers? Because this is insane how many of you get this just accurate. You just know it all already. I actually recently got a very interesting question under one of my community posts. I was really impressed. I think it was a great question, and I just want to read it to you. So the question that I got was under the post where I was asking, what do you value the most when learning new language? And many of you said vocabulary. Most of you said how fast you can start using it in everyday life. And none of you said grammar or rules. So I got it. I got you. But vocabulary and how fast I can start using daily life seems to be the absolute main points that most people find value when learning a new language, and I can absolutely relate to this. The question that I got, it was phenomenal. As a native, what would be your main advice to all Russian learners? I gave a giant response. I just wanted to share with you because I hope this will provide some additional information, what resources you can use and what approach you can use in order to learn honestly any language, but particularly Russian. And I replied that this is an excellent question, and my main advice would be to understand the reason for learning the language. There's no right or wrong answer, but it helps with the strategy. I absolutely stand by this. I absolutely believe that because my journey in learning English was to pass TOEFL exam, which is English proficiency test for essentially people who are planning to go or get an education in America in English speaking colleges or universities. So my goal was very specific. I couldn't just skip the grammar. I had to be very proficient in listening and speaking and writing and reading comprehension, and there was a lot of pressure, but that's why I think it's so important for you to be clear about what is your goal in learning any language. But if you hear probably Russian, what is your goal in learning Russian? Many of you said it's just for fun, and some of you said you just like the language, and I think there's a beautiful and wonderful reasons to be here, and I am incredibly happy and grateful that you chose me to take on this journey, and I'm hoping to make it as easy for you as possible. Continuing with my response, and I said, for example, if your goal is to start speaking with your friends or partner in a native tongue, then I think exposing yourself to speaking situation as soon as possible is the key. And one way to do that is, free or very cheaply, is just use the YouTube and watch Russian cartoons or movies or TV shows where you can be exposed to many dialogues. It might seem like a common sense, but I just want to, throw it out there that if sometimes you might have doubts like, oh, I want to start speaking Russian soon, what can I do? Start listening to other people speaking. Simple cartoons, like it's a great gateway into any language, I think, because it's simple enough but also challenging enough to understand the concept. So it's a good way to start, unintimidated. But TV shows, movies, music videos, lyrics, I wouldn't recommend because it's definitely trickier to understand the metaphors behind this. That will help to train your ear to Russian speech, intonation, common phrases and vocabulary. This way you can start applying what you learn in real life. The sooner the better. Also, I believe that the goal is not to know every Russian word under the sun, but to be able to understand others and express yourself in a way that others can understand you, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And this is something that I've definitely struggled with in my journey learning English, because as I said, my goal was to pass the exam, which is very stressful and people sometimes fail it, and again, it's not a big deal, but it feels like a big deal at the moment. Since none of you have this goal, don't worry about it if it doesn't sound right. If as long as people understand what is that you're trying to say, if you're not using the right form of the verb or you mispronounce some word, as long as others understand what is it that you're trying to get across to them, you are a winner. I think all of this applies to literally any language, as long as your goal is not to get to the university, get a job in this particular language. So if you just do it for fun, if you just like the language, you just want to, flex it a little bit among your friends or, partners, for example, don't worry about it. I definitely stand by this. There you go. I'm bringing up the example of me learning German on Duolingo. It's, I think, first language that I started learning in Duolingo is German. And actually, I also don't have anybody who I can practice speaking German with. So I started using words I learned to describe my cats, and this is so true. I literally would go around my house, and I have 2 cats, and I would go around my house and I would be like, oh, meine Katze ist sehr schön und zu klug. And if any of you speak German, like, sure, throw Rotten Tomatoes at me for my pronunciation, but it doesn't matter. I feel like I'm speaking, using the words that I learned, and I know what this word means. So meine Katze ist sehr schön und zu klug means my cat is very beautiful and too smart, and that's what it means. But this is just a little example of how little you need to start applying what you learn in real life. And the same, applies to Russian. You learn a little bit хорошо, something did a good job, you saying хорошо. Or you learn молодец, which means, you did a good job. Молодец, good job. Or, you learn a word, a book. It's a книга. It's like, oh, can you pass me that книга? I just want to flex a little bit, so just use the words you already know. Purely my opinion. Continue with my response. I'm saying, if, however, your goal is to start read Tolstoy in its native form, then jumping into reading literature is the way to get there. First, get an English-Russian dictionary on your phone or a book. You are gonna use that a lot. I literally have this on my phone and had it forever, and I use it often. If you want to start reading Russian poetry or Russian novels, start reading in Russian, whatever it is. Start reading anything that interests you, which again could sound obvious, but I just want to reinforce that this is the way. Start reading what's interesting to you. You can start with the easy reading, such as kids' book. You can start building a foundation and build confidence this way. You could read stories that you already know in your native tongue, for example, Cinderella, which is Zolushka in Russian, and start reading it in Russian. Then you can move up to reading articles, magazines, news, and slowly move up to be able to read and understand Tolstoy in original form. That was essentially my response to a fantastic question. Please, if you have questions, leave them in my community section or under any video, and I'm happy to jump in with you and help to reinforce some of the ideas that I've experienced myself learning English. And as a native Russian speaker, I absolutely can relate to the frustration behind how difficult the language can be, how many nuances are in there. But the point is, if you want to start speaking Russian, start. Use simple words that you learn with me or on your own. Start watching cartoons, maybe American cartoons or cartoons that you used to watch when you were little, and find them with the Russian captures or see them dubbed in Russian, because there are absolutely cartoons that are dubbed in Russian. For example, Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold, it's literally dubbed in Russian. It exists out there. So whatever it is for you, I hope this response that I gave to this fantastic question would also help you, guide you in your journey toward, becoming more proficient Russian speaker. We're done with this.